morning and welcome to Rising. We have a positively stacked show today. We have interviews with Rand Paul, Glenn Greenwald, Michael Schellenberger, and through the magic of time travel, we've actually already done them, and they're fantastic.
Yes, you will definitely want to stick around and watch the full show today, like you do always, I'm sure, but especially today.
Now, especially today. I'm not sure we've ever had a lineup this good in one single day. Well, take it away. What are we starting with?
Well, the House of Representatives formally approved an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden yesterday in a 221 to 212 vote along party lines. GOP leaders say the formal inquiry is needed to expand the scope of their investigation into Biden's alleged high crimes and misdemeanors. News Nation caught up with Oversight Committee Committee Chair James Comer this morning on the Hill, where they asked him what's next. Let's tune in.
Well, we expect to get the information that we've requested from the White House. You know, we still have thousands of emails in those pseudonyms that they've never sent over. Those should have been sent over with a simple FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. These weren't classified emails, but they've been holding them up. They said there was nothing there, but then in the indictment in California, several of those emails were referenced. So, you know, we've been saying all along there was something there with those emails, and I think the indictment proved that. So we expect to get the information we've requested, and we expect the people that we've subpoenaed to honor their subpoenas.
And what do you say in response to President Joe Biden's statement calling this a baseless political stunt and he's focused on the real issues?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen Bidenomics every day at work. We see the wide open border. At the end of the day, my job is to investigate public corruption. And they had an opportunity yesterday to come in and set the record straight. Hunter Biden rolled in, had a little press conference, said he wanted to answer questions, and then when the media started asking him questions, he jumped in his car and drove off.
Now, President Biden lashed out in response to the opening of the formal impeachment inquiry, writing in a statement, quote, "Instead of doing anything to help make Americans' lives better, they're focused on attacking me with lies." He also called the inquiry a baseless political stunt that even Republicans in Congress admit is not supported by facts. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre faced a grilling from the White House press corps on Hunter Biden's refusal to appear for closed-door testimony before House Republicans. Let's catch some of that.
Is the president okay with his son defying a congressional subpoena?
I'm just not going to get into specifics on that. I would have to refer you to the president's. Not the president, but Hunter's personal representatives. He's a private citizen. I'm just not going to get into it.
Can you tell us when the last time the two of them spoke?
I mean, I'm also not going to get into private conversation that the president has with his family. We've been pretty consistent. That's nothing new. We're just not going to get into it from here.
All right.
I believe she said that Biden was familiar with what Hunter Biden had planned to say and do before the Capitol yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, okay. With just the Karine Jean-Pierre point, I don't know that that's particularly remarkable. They could be on the phone as she speaks. It's a private conversation between a father and son. I do think there are limits to how much she could even have insight into when the last moment they spoke. When's the last time you talked to your mom, Robby?
Let's not litigate that today. I talk to my mama all the time.
But what do you make about this bigger framing? Yesterday, we were a little on the fence about who was winning this optics battle. Hunter Biden came. He said, if you want to question me in the public. There's no reason to do it behind closed doors unless you want to misrepresent what I've been saying. Republicans, Comer's obviously trying to grab onto the narrative and recontextualize it, saying he showed up for a little press junket, hopped in his car and left without being transparent with the public, which we gave him an opportunity to do, of course, behind closed doors. And now with the formal impeachment inquiry, has that managed to reshift the narrative in a way that's more favorable for conservatives? I mean, maybe.
James Comer explained there what the thinking is, which is that they want access to these emails that they believe were sent by pseudonyms that refer to the Bidens, and that they've asked for these emails and they should be able to get them, and they haven't been able to get them, and that now in this the California tax matter that is now facing Hunter Biden, those emails are part of that investigation, or that indict the charges, and so given that, they should have access to them. There might be a there. Again, the operative and important word is might, and it is fair to take the position that there's no evidence so far that impacts Joe Biden. There's a lot of insinuation and there's a lot of questions. I think some of these questions are legitimate, and if they need to open an impeachment inquiry to fully vet them, that's the case they're making. They needed the impeachment inquiry in order to see if these claims have any merit.
Yeah, I mean, go
What
at
can you
it.
say?
I do think you got to be a little bit careful what you wish for. It's been a 5-year investigation, as Hunter Biden argued yesterday on Capitol Hill. The larger the investigations, the more empowered the investigations are. It didn't come out with a smoking gun when Trump was the literal president of the United States of America. It hasn't. They have yet to come up with a smoking gun since Republicans took over the House. We'll see what they're able to do.
They were too busy investigating Trump.
The House, the Republican House?
And the investigators.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, the point that was made there in one of those clips, it does seem like Congress has been mostly engaged with activities, or this is what Joe Biden said, mostly engaged with activities that have nothing to do with the interests of the American people. Now, Republicans aren't alone in that. But as Glenn Greenwald pointed out on Twitter, the U.S. Congress has passed more resolutions and bills involving Israel and anti-Semitism since October 7th than literally any other subject. So the interest seems to be rooting out pro-Palestinian speech on college campuses and going after Hunter Biden. You might think both of those are legitimate pastimes, but I got to say, the American people looking around, thinking what's on offer for me in the next election cycle, I'm not surprised to the extent that they're confused.
Right, and the Senate just rubber stamped in bipartisan fashion with some level of opposition from both people on the right and the left, but unfortunately it passed the continuation of FISA warrantless domestic surveillance. So our government continues is going to be violating your civil liberties in all the way you've become accustomed to over the last 20 years. That business will continue as usual, despite the fact that there's massive Republican voter interest in ending the weaponization of the federal government. This is still the business of Washington continues in this way. So I take your point, and obviously we have somewhat different views on aspects of the Israel-Palestine conflict, but part of what I feel about it, and and a lot of voices on the right, like Tucker Carlson, feel about it, is that it's a little bit of a tell if you're a political figure and you're just obsessed with being pro or for, this is all you care about, and you want to hunt down speech you don't like on this subject. Well, you're a legislator. There are serious problems facing America. Why is the security of another nation? Could say the same thing about Ukraine. Why is this top of your mind at a time where the American people are frustrated with the economic situation, hate their political leadership in both parties, have serious questions about Joe Biden and whether he should be president again, and what are you doing? You're just rubber stamping the same programs they've hated for 20 years and continuing to focus your attention elsewhere or on the culture battle. And we can participate in the culture battle casually if we like, but they're supposed to have more important jobs than that.
Yeah, I mean, back to this for a second. I mean, can James Comer really respond? Has he responded sufficiently to the argument that he had an opportunity to question Hunter Biden and simply did not do so? I mean, he literally submitted himself, showed up to Congress and said, here I am, you can question me in a public hearing. Is there really any way to rationalize getting around that at the end of the day?
I mean, even Jim Jordan, when he was asked about that, said, yeah, I think additionally, there should be a public one.
Yeah, at least take advantage of what's being offered. You can still try to pursue the closed door conversation. Yeah, I
mean, I understand the argument that it becomes kind of a spectacle in public. I get there's a lot of grandstanding and a lot of unimportant questions. I know this from the one time I testified before a House committee on civil liberties, where the same question got asked by 4 different people because, and I don't blame them for this, is they all want a clip of them saying that thing. So it's not so much a fact-finding mission as it is a show my supporters and my key donors, how I was grilling a perceived enemy. That's just kind of how it works. But I agree with you.
Right?
But I agree with you. It should be in public.
I'm
not disagreeing.
I always go back to the example of the Kavanaugh hearings, where I think pretty smartly Republicans decided to get a special prosecutor to do the questioning, so they did have the continuity of a regular cross-examination instead of the grandstanding that tends to take place when you let each Congress member take their turn. So these are choices that can be made. You can get around that. You don't have to do the grandstanding if you really think there's value to a more typical sort of a cross-examination. But yeah, I definitely take your point. Do stick around. As we said, there's a huge show coming up. More Rising for you right after this.